There we go. We are live. Hello, hello, everybody, and happy Thursday. My name is Jessie from A Mom on a Mission. And every Thursday night, I come on with an amazing mom to share with you. And tonight, we're going to be talking about real nutrition with Lisa. And I'm very excited. But before we get going, we're going to give everybody a minute to find us. So go ahead and make sure that you let us know if you are live, or let us know if you are catching the replay as well. We are streaming across Facebook and YouTube right now. So let us know where you're watching from and let us know where you are. Because I'm from Michigan and Lisa's from Canada, which is really
I'm
awesome.
from Montreal. I'm from Montreal.
Okay, so we're going to give everybody a minute to find us, and we're going to start out by sharing our positives. And I want to encourage all of you to go ahead and, if you have a positive, go ahead, put it in the comments, and let's celebrate together, because it's just nice to know what has been going on with everybody. So, Lisa, do you want to start us out with what are your positives today?
Yes, absolutely. There's lots of positives. So it'd take the whole hour. Positive, there was a beautiful sunshine today. So my day was crazy busy, but I had sunshine coming into the wind through the window. And so full of energy, even though it's 7:00 at night.
And then I'm looking at who we got here. Sorry, I see Jeanette jumped in. Hi, Jeanette. Hello.
Hi,
girl.
Jeanette.
Let us know your positives if you have them. We are very excited. And then let's see. My positive today, probably this week, is we had a really rough week, and I am just super grateful for an amazing family. We have a great support system. We have family members that we had both our cars shut down this week, and we had family members just jump in to see where they could help us. We had some personal stuff going on this week with my daughter, and just overly stressed. And the amount of support and love and calls that we got from family members was just like, it was hard to have a hard week when I had that many people supporting us today. So let's take a look at your guys' positives. We've got Jeanette says she took a day off. Good for you, Jeanette.
It was a great day, Jeanette, because I saw your weather today, and good for you. It was a beautiful day. Amazing.
It is. Yeah, it was really nice here. It was really sunny, but we had a cold wind. But my kids got out some of their cabin fever. They've been running around with chickens all day. Well, let's go ahead and start getting into the intro. If you are catching in, make sure that you continue to share those positives with us. So we are talking about real nutrition, and I know that is something that is kind of a hot topic. Some moms are embarrassed to ask about it because it's like we're supposed to know exactly how to feed our kids and what to feed ourselves and our kids, and all those crazy questions that come up. We're not born with those answers. So
no, not at all. I think we've all been given a baby, and I think from day one, when you're supposed to put him on the breast and just naturally feed him, you realize, no, somebody should have talked to me about this to let me know what I'm supposed to do. So from day one.
Yeah, I remember I was able to nurse all of my kids. And I remember the first one was like, I had a nurse that was like all up in my space, just moving everything around. And I was so awkward, but I was at the same time, I'm like, thank you, because I have no idea how this is supposed to work.
I know. I remember one nurse. I think she had 5 kids of her own at the time.
Yeah.
She was wonderful. She started me out. She touched me and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but they just go like, they just grab right in. They were just like,
she's like, oh, this isn't right. This has got to be more out. And I'm like, okay.
That's funny. That's funny that you say she had 5 kids, because I swear since my last one, I have younger moms that will reach out to me and they'll ask me questions about it. And I will, I'll just be like, hey, so like, can I just you go in there? And they're like, yeah, help me, please. And I'm like, okay, I've been there. Like, Well, Lisa, tell us a little bit about you. Introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do. I'm super excited to have you on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be on. Well, like I said, I'm from Montreal and I was born and raised here. And for those of you who know Montreal, you can go ahead and ask your question in French or English. We're quite bilingual here. So I was born actually in a French family. And so my mom is French and my father is Italian, but both of them Canadian. So I was, like I said, born and raised. And I guess university, I went to McGill and became a nutritionist after that. And I've been actually working at the Montreal Children's Hospital for, I think, 29 years. Or is it 31? Something. Yeah.
So what got you into that? Were you always into like children's nutrition, children's diet? Did you always know you wanted to work with kids?
No, okay. I didn't know all that. I think when the time came to like a lot of kids, you know, if you're quite young by the time you're making your choices in university, and I knew I wanted sciences. And I knew I liked chemistry, actually. Chemistry was my bigger thing. And so I, did pharmacy. I applied for pharmacy and nutrition. And nutrition came in the day before pharmacy. And I thought, I like them both. Let's think about it. And I said, that was an omen. It was like first came first, I'm going to take nutrition. And that's where I went from there. And then once I started learning more about nutrition, one of my internships was actually at the Children's. And so once I had the opportunity to work at the Children's, I loved it. And I was lucky enough that when they needed somebody, not full-time for sure, it was just availability, I put my foot in the door. And despite not having a lot of job opportunities at the time, I kept my foot in there the whole time. And I've been there, like I said, since probably 1993.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. It's been a while. Yeah, 28 years, I guess. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And an internship before that, but I loved it. You know, it was a great, it's an environment where you have input. Yeah. And you're taken, not in all hospitals, but in a children's hospital, the nutritionists that were there before me really paved the way for us to have good credibility. So whenever we say something, everybody's on board, and it's really an amazing place to work.
Oh, that's awesome. See,
yeah.
We have a children's hospital that's not too far from us, and we're really, really lucky to have an amazing, we have the DeVos Children's Hospital here in West Michigan, and I think it's Spectrum Health. And my daughter, one of my daughters has Kawasaki syndrome, which is a heart condition. And we were so lucky to be able to just drive 45 minutes and be to a heart specialist, which was awesome. And so that's great. I love hearing that you are doing that.
Yeah.
And then you do nutrition counseling for people too?
So when you work in a hospital, it's what you call clinical nutrition. So it's about conditions. It's about somebody who has a condition, or, it's usually, especially it's an acute hospital. So there's no community type interventions there. And so I think what happened with time is I wanted to have the normal side, the quote unquote normal side of the nutrition, to be able to bring the normal part, to keep it in the clinical, to keep the clinical as normal as possible for whoever's going through what they're going through, to keep it, not so clinical for the actual person, the family. And that's where I think I stayed in the community and started doing more consultations that are maybe less intensive and more everyday kind of stuff. I mean, obviously there could be some, clinical in there, but it's not at the same level. And there's a lot of families who are just curious, right? They need to know, they want to learn. They're excited to learn, but confused sometimes. And I think that's what happens, We hear so much about nutrition that sometimes people who come and see me in the community, they really don't have a condition. They're just a family who's busy, who wants to learn a little bit more about how to feed themselves and their children well, so that they can continue to be active and happy and healthy for a long, long time. And they just sort of come in for a consultation, and we just chat about, how can we do that in our busy lives? And so it's very refreshing, to keep sort of that, normal nutrition happening, right? I mean, because the ideal is that even if somebody needs more clinical approach, that we try to keep it as normal as possible. So bringing back,
I love that. And because I'm all about bringing real actionable steps to parents, because, it's one thing. One of my worst things is like when I went to a nutritionist once, and I think it was like kid number 3, and I was struggling with like meal planning and stuff. And they had this girl, sweet as could be, but she was like fresh out of college, didn't have any kids, and was like, you should be doing this, 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 this. And I'm like, okay, how? How?
Yeah.
Well, I'm super excited. We'll get into kind of the points and the topics that we were going to cover tonight. And I love that you say that you're going to be bringing stuff, in like a real sense into the community too, because especially some of these things that we're going to be talking about, there are a lot of moms that are like ashamed that they don't know the answers to some of this stuff or how to do that. So if you guys have questions throughout this, please leave them below. If you have questions, hi, Tammy just joined us. Hi, Tammy girl. So if you have questions about any of this, we're going to be talking about, busting myths about nutrition. So if there's a myth that you've heard and you want it busted, we'll put Lisa to the test here. And we're going to be talking about red flags for eating disorders and how to balance your nutrition with your family in a realistic way. So if you guys have questions, please put them below. We will get to them. If not through while we're going, we will make sure we get to all of them at the end. And then I had a couple of moms that private messaged me some too, because some of these are sensitive subjects. So we'll make sure to cover those all. Okay. So are you ready, Lisa?
I'm ready to go.
Okay, so
spin the wheel. Let's go.
First one was myths that need to be busted about nutrition. And I know you had some. So what do you got for us?
Am I supposed to look at? Oh, I had myths for you. Oh, well, that was 3 weeks ago. So you're going to have to remind. So myths in general, I don't know. I'll make them up because whatever I sent you, that was too long ago. But I think, what were the myths?
I don't know. Well, I got, you know what? Let's start with Tammy's. That'll get your gears grinding. That is, she said eating before bed.
Oh, that's a great one. So, so I think there's a lot also. I think, Tammy, you could add to that eating after 8 o'clock or eating after supper or eating after anything. I think that's a good one. So it could go either way. Okay. So let's say you've had a really late day and by the time you have supper, you're just having a small supper, but there's a couple of things that maybe you still need to eat, maybe you haven't finished some of this. So having, eating it a little bit closer to bedtime isn't the end of the world in those cases. So I'll give you an example. If I had my regular meal and at the end, all of a sudden, half an hour later, we're carving out the pineapple and, we're deciding to pass around some fruit or something like that, absolutely no problem. I think we're putting rules like that where don't do something after 8 o'clock, it eliminates all the thinking, right? So instead of saying after 8 o'clock, don't eat anything, maybe what we should say is when you are eating after 8 o'clock, what's going on? What's going on after 8 o'clock? Are you like in front of a movie and you're very tired and you're just going to grab whatever without thinking, without taking any time to think about what you're doing? Or is it just that, you were so busy finishing the dishes that you didn't have time to carve out the pineapple and take out the strawberries or the cookies, that whatever it is, at that point, it's not the end of the world. But I think that's where I would say eating before bed. There's different kinds of eatings before bed. Okay. I'll also add to that, Tammy, is that a lot of people, this is one of the things I've realized, don't have breakfast. And what happens to a lot of people when they don't have breakfast is that they end up really not having eaten enough during the day, a busy day, didn't have breakfast. And so after supper, right into bedtime becomes almost the breakfast they didn't have. So something to think about. So it's not, I don't like these things where after a certain time we don't do some, we have to put thought into it. There are times where eating at that time is just fine and other times maybe not a great idea.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm one of those that I believe that, and I was always told, okay, don't eat after a certain time or don't eat so many times before bed. And I'm one of those people that I tend to skip breakfast just because I'm not thinking about it. And so I'll find that I'll get in snack mode right before bed and I go for chips
Mm.
every single time.
Yeah. So
Let's
it's a
see.
good.
We're going to go. We got some really good ones here. So we've got another one from Christy. She says, my daughter is lactose intolerant, and someone told me that the almond milk is just a treat and not actually a milk replacement that I should,
Oh,
and that you should get lactose-free milk instead. What are your thoughts on that?
okay. First of all, I want to say thanks, Tammy. She says mindfulness is what
Yeah.
she was. Yeah. So that's a great question. There are different kinds of milk alternatives. Okay. So when we talk about milk, usually for most of us, it's cow's milk. When you're lactose intolerant, for those who are, less up on lactose intolerance versus an allergy, which would be allergic to the protein, when you're intolerant to milk, you're actually not digesting the sugar that's in the milk, which is the lactose. So every mammal, including the human, produces a sugar, and it's called lactose. And that is basically, I've got a little elastic for my hair, but it's basically two little sugars, okay? So 1 and 2. And what you do is you cut it, and then it becomes like this, ready to be absorbed. And what that does is at that point, if you choose lactose-free milk or milk that has been treated with lactase, which is the enzyme that people don't have when they don't digest it, then it's the same thing as if you were doing it yourself. And so you're getting the same nutrition out of a cup of milk that's lactose-free and one that's got lactose. And that's the best equivalent. Okay. Now, I don't want to get into those debates. A lot of people are going to say, look, milk is not for me, or we don't want to go that route. I'm going to leave that aside right now.
Yeah.
I'm just going to answer your question. So when you get into some of the milk alternatives, other than soy milk, most of the other milks have very low protein. And it's basically a milk that has the same look as cow's milk, but it's really a beverage. And then to make it taste good, we usually just sweeten it the same way as you would sweeten, let's say, regular milk with, let's say, a flavoring. So what happens is a lot of the times we have, whether it be almond milk or oatmeal or cashew or anything that you can think of, we can get really creative. We can, some of them, what they haven't done is they haven't made it as nutritious as a regular milk. It's made to be a beverage. It's not made to be a milk replacement. Okay.
Okay. Hopefully, Christy, does that answer your question? Let us know what you think she said there. And I understand completely. My son, he was lactose intolerant, and I found out while I was nursing him, actually. So I had to cut all dairy from my diet, which was hard because I grew up on a farm. Like, it was almost straight from the cow. Okay. And it was so hard trying to figure out what he could have, what he couldn't have, what he would drink or what he wouldn't drink.
Yeah.
I think that is an important step too, is figuring out what are they actually going to drink.
I'd be curious, Jessie, was it lactose intolerance? Because that has nothing to do with what you eat. Maybe it was actually protein allergy or intolerance.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, okay. I don't. Yeah, he's fine now. Now if he is if he already has an upset stomach and like drinks milk, he gets gurgly. But otherwise, he's fine now.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, but it doesn't matter. Everything's good now.
All right, you guys are doing great. Chrissy says yes. Thank you for the explanation. That's awesome. Okay, Jeanette has.
Oh no, Jeanette.
Yes, I know. I love her too. She's amazing. I get some of my greatest moments from Jeanette, and she's just the best support.
I put on my glasses so I can actually read her question from far there.
Okay, so she said her daughter stopped ADHD medication. Since then, her appetite has gone crazy.
Yeah,
for something to eat. We're trying to give healthy options. How do we manage this?
I guess my first question, and you don't have to answer because it could be personal, but sometimes when kids are on certain ADHD medications, they've actually haven't had an opportunity to grow as much because they weren't their appetite had been a little bit stunted or
Depressed,
decreased. Okay. So it could be that it's temporary while somebody gets back into their growth and they catch up, as we say, catch up growth, or something else. So that I would have to know, where are we at? I mean, is this little daughter of yours still trying to grow and catch up? Where is she on her growth curves? And so it could be that, that's maybe her normal appetite. Maybe it's her catch-up appetite. So that would make a difference. And did you have a second part to that question, like healthy options? So
Yeah.
healthy options are for, it doesn't matter whether you've got, I think what helps when you're really, really hungry and I think I'll go with the wanting to eat on the hour. I'll take that part. Sometimes it's because whatever was eaten the hour before wasn't complete enough. So a bit the same thing as what I was saying before, when we don't have a proper breakfast, sometimes we find ourselves sort of running after our appetite all day. So if you look at the meal before, Jeanette, in your case, take a look, did your child at that time have the protein, have some maybe fibers, that were coming from the fruits and veggies, whole grains? Was there enough fat? Did we go too low fat? Because sometimes, for other people in the family, we go low fat. Was there a good mix, like what you would call a healthy placemat? And then you might have it, yes, I offered it, but somebody went away from the table without having it all. You ask yourself, why? Was there a snack the hour before the meal? And is that why when you sat down? Because I know Jeanette makes amazing food. So, if that's the case, then making sure that maybe 2 hours before a meal, we stop the snacks. We're like, you want a little bit of water or something, that's fine. And we just sort of let the appetite come up and be really well satiated, or, get better if you want, at the time where you're making your good meal that is balanced. And maybe you'll see, maybe your child will need a snack in an hour or two, and then have again a little bit of a fasting period. I mean, it's not meant to be painful here. It's just meant to put some limits, so making sure that we're not like eating right up to the meal and then we don't eat the proper meal. I don't know if that helps, Jeanette. Let me know.
Well, and I have two things. That one, my daughter is like a serial snacker. So like she is constantly wanting to snack but not actually eat foods, and we're having that problem with my 2.5-year-old. And that's one of the things we were like, okay, well, we're gonna stop doing snacks before before each meal. So if they're hungry, I'm like, well, you can eat a meal because snack time isn't again until this time. Because if I give them a choice between a meal and a basket of snacks, they're gonna go for the snacks every single time. Like every single time. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's a great idea, but at the same time, when you've got a little appetite, so when somebody was on your 2.5-year-old, your little one, or somebody who's on medication or something like that, it's possible they can't sit down and eat the whole meal. Yeah. So when you're looking at the whole meal, if somebody is only capable of eating, let's say, what's on their plate, which is the veggies and the whole grains and a kind of protein, animal or plant protein, if that's all they can handle at that time, there's nothing wrong with adding a snack. But you kind of look back and say, okay, what's missing now? Well, maybe some fruit and dairy or an alternative to dairy. And if there's one of those things that didn't get eaten or both, that becomes the snack that's going to get eaten afterwards. So there's room for snacks. Snacks are not all bad. I think of snacks as they should be a complement to what you didn't have yet, versus I didn't have the fruit and the dairy, but let me throw myself into these, this junk food or something.
See, and I think that goes great into something, because a parent had asked me, should I make my kid finish their plate every time? And I think you just answered that question, right? You just answered that question. They don't have to finish it every time, but then be mindful of what they didn't finish and introduce that into a snack later on. So that's awesome. Tiffany just joined us. Hi, Tiffany. So yeah, we got some foodies in here too. Some of these girls are really, they're all about, like, if you want to get hungry, watch their social media pages.
Okay. I'll go back.
Okay, so what we'll do is, because I do have, if you guys have missed, go ahead and put those in. We're going to move on to the next one so that we have time between them. But please continue to put your, continue to put out your questions and everything in there. And we'll try and grab them through the day. Tammy says I eat 6 times a day. See, I do little meals through the whole day.
That's fine.
That's what I do. But I know my husband just does 6 big meals through the day. No, I'm just kidding.
You know, and I think, you know, the important thing with that is to be a bit intuitive. You know, when you talk, there's the buzzwords now with nutrition and everything is talking about mindfulness or intuitive eating.
Yeah.
And you have to find the happy middle with that.
Yeah.
If I have 3 bites of my meal and I like, okay, I'm out of there. That's a problem, because how can I be intuitive? It's not as soon as I feel a little bit full that I should still try to eat at that time. So that most of my food is during the meal times, and then I complement with a snack versus the one bite, because I mean, I think Jesse would be the perfect one to perhaps agree with me on this, is that when you've got, you know, all these people in the home, you've got 2 adults and 5 kids in the house. If everybody's going to be intuitive, which means they eat at their own pace, the kitchen is never going to stop. Nobody's going to get anything else done. No. So there's got to be a happy middle with, you know, really having a sit down time. And sometimes kids, you know, they don't sit down or they don't have more than a bite because they know the minute they finish, they're out of there. Yeah. And so it brings back sort of that family idea, the family meal, where sit down at a meal. If you're even 3 out of the 5 of you or something, sit down and make it, you know, that within 20 minutes, a half an hour, whether you're hungry or not go anywhere. And really have to focus in at that time. The child, take the time to feel what it is to be hungry and not to be like preoccupied with something else and can't wait to go play outside or to meet up with a buddy or go back to the screens or whatever it is that's going on at this time. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, I schedule actually like screen time and things that they're going to be doing with. We do breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, and then snack or dessert. And that's
it sounds like a daycare schedule.
Yeah, I'm close.
Yes, and that's amazing. You're offering it. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so I want to move into the next one because I did actually have a lot of moms that said that moms and dads actually that had reached out to me, and they were interested in our next topic, which is red flags to look for with eating disorders. Because you actually, one of your specialties or one of the things that you work with is teens and people that are suffering from eating disorders and helping them to get healthy and past that. So what are that's number one, like red flags to look out of, and I think immediately of like teenage daughter, like my teenage daughter, you know, she's a tween and she already has you know, issues where sometimes she's, you know, not confident in her body, and that can lead, you know, to it wanting to make sure that we're
where is it the sort of the normal teen who's a bit concerned, versus the one that goes a little bit deeper into it. And I think one of the things, and I mean, I know that, you know, we want to keep it positive, probably COVID shouldn't be on the agenda here, but I'll take a minute to say that it's been around now for a year in our environment anyway. Yeah. And what that's caused for everybody is an increased anxiety. Everybody, even if you were the calmest kitten around, you felt something this year that you've never felt before. So you've got to remember that for perhaps a teen. I'm just going to talk about teens. I'm not going to pretend that it's not beyond teens, but if you've got a teen who already has the anxiety there at whatever level, and now you come in with a new non-controllable situation like COVID, where you don't control how you see your friends or what you do. You don't get to go to school in the same way as you used to go to school or do your sports. It's different, and I know everywhere. But the point is that it brings up the anxiety that much more, and the not having the control over it. And I don't have any statistics, but I've certainly seen, by just talking to other people, psychologists that I work with, when we do talk about eating disorders, you know, admissions to hospitals and things like that. I'm just going to put a small number. I think it's 3 times more. So what's happened this year is that, think about what everybody's been focused on, especially in March, last year. everybody started to say, okay, well, we don't want to eat out or we can't eat out. Let's eat in. So now we're focusing more on food.
Yeah.
And some people had, we didn't all have the same experience. Some people were 3 times busier and some people were 3 times less busy. And so eating became part of the sport, right? So a lot of people were saying, I'm putting on the weight. And then, they would put that on Facebook and they would say, I'm putting on the pounds, I'm putting on the weight and, I can't exercise and I'm gaining weight. And I'm, and this became a bit of a focus. So food, weight, body just became much more of a focus. That's what I saw anyway. Like everybody was posting their food and everybody was making jokes about how they were just going to have, a big belly by the end of all this. So this is, and then on the flip side, then you saw people starting to really take things into hand. Oh, I am now going to diet. I'm going to eat properly. I'm going to go to not to the gym. I'm going to do these exercises. I'm going to do this many sit-ups and I'm going to do this. So you didn't have to go far. All you needed to go is just your own friend base. And what you saw was a bit of a frenzy around food and body and nutrition and pictures. And, I've never seen so many crop tops and pictures and, going around in just the regular population. So I think that in situations like that, where to look at is when we're talking about red flags is where does something that sounds healthy cross the line? So if you're now, instead of talking about food a little bit, for example, or, talking about exercising a little bit, now it becomes beyond. I can't eat this until I've exercised, or I need to exercise every day for 1 hour. And if it doesn't happen, I'm freaking out. I'm panicking about it. So these kinds of things where it looks normal, everybody's on the outside going, wow, look, so-and-so is really like embracing healthy lifestyle and look how well she's eating. And I don't think she's having any more junk. And I don't think she's, I think she's really having a really well-balanced diet and she's exercising every day, or he. And it kind of on the outside is like, wow, shouldn't we all be like that? But the problem is it's sometimes crossed the line. It's the line where if that person can't eat like that or can't exercise like that, they have an anxiety that's just beyond. So one of the red flags is to be careful, because a lot of the people who have called me, they said, I just thought, he or she was just getting healthier with everything that's going around. We want to be healthy and get our immune system going and, make sure we come out of this like not a bunch of couch potatoes. And it sounded so good. But when they dug a little further, they realized that it was not something that was just surface. It was something that was a need for that person to feel good, and they weren't going to feel good, and they were going to feel super anxious if they didn't do these things or control certain things.
And that's like, I've heard like not being satisfied with the amount of weight loss. Cause there's being healthy. I know some people that are, they're not like what I would consider super thin, but they're super healthy. They're healthier than I am. You know what I mean? And so like that never being satisfied with being small enough or being, like fit enough. Right.
Yes. And there's different kinds. When we talk, you don't have to have a full-fledged eating disorder where you fit all the criteria. I think it's good enough to say that sometimes it's disordered eating or disordered relationship with food or disordered perspective of how much activity is healthy, right? So, when you're starting to not go out, and I realize this year has been really different, but when you're not just going out to enjoy the fresh air and to, play pitch and catch with your kids or, go for a bike ride, enjoy a hike, when it becomes a mission. If I don't do it, then this, or if I don't do it tomorrow, well, that means I can't have this. When it starts to be this kind of thinking, then it starts to be a little bit what I call the red flags.
Well, and I love that you said disordered eating. So what's the difference between an eating disorder or disordered eating?
Yeah, I think sometimes, when you talk about an eating disorder, it has to be diagnosed. So health professionals who it's mental health. There's criteria that get, I don't want to get into that, but it's like DSM, and you have to sort of check. These things have to be there, and then you can diagnose with this, no matter which mental health disorder it could be. When you're talking about disordered eating, it means that, a young lady might still be having her period, but there's a lot of things going on, like some of the things we talked about. So they may not fit all the criteria to be diagnosed with an eating disorder, but they're certainly on a disordered eating. And for me, when somebody wants to come and talk to me, I don't always need it to be an eating disorder. I could also see that somebody is having tendencies, having some red flags. And sometimes you just need to talk about, make them realize at that point what's going on underneath the eating, what's not feeling good, and most of the time, something like an eating disorder, not so much the disordered eating, but the eating disorder for sure is not something that you could say it's about food.
Yeah.
Or about somebody needing to lose weight or something. It has nothing to do with that, but it has a lot to do with other kinds of situations, like having anxiety and not having an outlet for it, not being able to find a different way of coping. So when you think in life, when things are difficult, if we have the capability of coping with it or learning how to deal with it and having some strategies, we tend not to fall into what we call the maladaptive ones, the ones that are not great for us, right? So eating disorder or disorder, that will be the route that certain people will take. We know very well that other people will engage in risky behaviors that are also maybe a coping mechanism, or, the risky behaviors could be anything like drugs and alcohol. There's a lot of different places that when we're having trouble with another issue that we fall in trying to cope and putting, in the case of an eating disorder, if you're anxious about something, for example, controlling your food and controlling exercise and controlling your body makes you feel like things are in control for all the things that you have no control over.
Yes, I love, Jeanette says this is interesting, and it is. I love listening. I'm just like taking it all in too. And Kathleen showed up late. Hey, Kathleen, we went over some myths already. We're going to try and get some at the end too that people were asking. So if you have any of those, make sure to put them in the comments. We're going over red flags for eating disorders. We were just talking about the difference between an eating disorder or disordered eating. I did have a mom that privately asked me a question, and I had asked moms to totally send those out to me if they did.
That's a good idea.
Such a sensitive topic. And I had one that had asked me, how do I start the discussion with my teen if I believe that they have an eating disorder? They've been binging, they've been losing weight. At first they thought it was just anxiety, and now they're concerned that it's more than that, and they don't know how to, do they just call somebody and take the kid to the doctor, or do they sit down and have a conversation with them?
That's a great question. I mean, it really depends on the relationship that already exists, right? Okay. You would hope that even though you do need to consult somebody else, you would hope that at least the discussion of, I've been noticing, and I think the important thing to do is you can't just, say to somebody, look, I think you have an eating disorder or something like that. I think sometimes they'll just they might agree, they may not agree, they may feel, threatened, they might feel, they may not even know, they may not even recognize that this is what's going on, right? I think if you have a good relationship with the person, I think you could just approach it more globally and kind of say, I've been noticing that, with all these things, whatever going on, that, there's certain things that are happening. Would you like to talk about any of that? And if you're not comfortable to talk to me about it, can I offer you somebody else to talk about it? So you don't have to talk about necessarily the food in that, but you might see them, they're nervous about something, or they get stressed out about something, or they've got anxiety, or whatever it is that they might have. You might just put it out there that, it's normal. that people go through these things and that you're there for them, but you realize that you're a parent and teens are not going to be open necessarily with their parents. They could be, but they might just want to be independent and maybe, and even if they don't recognize the problem, you say, look, I know that, okay, maybe you don't recognize it right now, but I'm noticing that there's something and I'd love to talk to you about it. I'm not an expert on it, but I'd love to talk to you about it. But I could also understand how being a teen, I may not be the person you want to talk about, but I know that something's going on. I'm concerned. You could just do that. And then once you're concerned, depending on the reaction you have. So you've got some who will, say, yeah, I know. I don't know what's going on. Things are not, or others will just adamantly say, no, I'm just trying to be healthy. And you say, yeah, but it's beyond health. I'm not an expert. I'd like you to have a chat with somebody else. Who would you be comfortable talking to? Because it doesn't have to be the family doctor. I mean, obviously, if they look like they need an emergency room, you need to bring them to emergency room.
Yeah.
But if that's not the case, they might say, oh, Miss Betty at the school, she's the guidance counselor or whatever. And she talks to us sometimes at lunch and I would feel comfortable going to talk to her. And you're like, go for it. Open up the door to whoever you feel is going to listen to you. And from there, let's see if you need something different, then we'll explore wherever would be best for you. So I think maybe just opening the door to acknowledge without pointing fingers or blame. I think the important thing is to say, look, it's really normal. It's really normal that somewhere along the way, something's not going right. And we just need to sort of become aware of it. So once we put it out there, we can go and see who can best help us. And you probably everybody has probably examples in their people around them that even the teen would have recognized. You remember when grandpa wasn't so happy, he's very sad, and like you can show how it's normal that some of these things happen and how it's okay, we go and get some help.
I love that. And I think you answered the next question, which was, once you have that conversation, what do you do next? And I think you answered that beautifully by finding, it doesn't necessarily have to be a doctor or an ER, but it can be another person or professional that they are comfortable with. Maybe that's like you said, maybe somebody at school, maybe somebody at church, maybe you're part of a community center that you go to all the time. You got a Y that's by you.
An example could be that you can't talk to me, but you're really close to my sister, your aunt, and maybe you want to chat with her a little bit. But I think where I don't want anybody to take what I've said in the wrong way is that when professional help is necessary, that we don't, at one point, you just can't take no for an answer.
Yes. Which
I've seen very, very recently. Somebody was about to see me and then didn't see me, wouldn't see me because wouldn't talk to the counselor, wouldn't talk. And, mom said, look, I brought her to the counselor. She's zip up, I was supposed to meet her on a Zoom on a Friday night. And it was like, no, I don't think it's worth it. She didn't even talk to the guidance counselor at school, social worker at school. It didn't, what's the use calling you? I'm like, okay, but just remember there is an emergency room, because what I was hearing was a little bit too much. It had gone too long, too critically, too long. And through the back door, went to see the doctor, got an echocardiogram done, and got admitted. So you can't sit on things forever either. And it doesn't mean that's going to be for everybody, but you can't tell.
Yeah.
I'm sure she was coming home from school and she probably still looked okay, Yeah. But, once things were looked at a little bit more closely, a professional needs to make that call at one point.
Yeah.
You can't be just waiting for the person to be ready to talk. At one point, you got to look and say, okay, things are not looking healthy here. And I'm worried. I need to get it assessed. And if there's nothing to worry about, they can tell me that, but I'm not as a parent going to play the doctor's role.
Yeah.
Assessing, because you can't see how somebody's heart is doing. You can't see how they're really doing.
Well, and I think that you just said it perfectly. Like, there's that intuition, like we have that intuition to our kids, when something's off or when something's wrong, and acting on it, because maybe you think that it's an eating disorder and it's really like anxiety or drug use or something like that. And then
it's often all together,
yeah,
so you're doing no wrong, whether the
yeah.
anxiety stands alone or whether nothing stands alone.
Mm-mm. No, and I love that.
There's no such thing.
I love Kathleen says it can be grandma, because we actually we are a really good team. That is my mother-in-law, Kathleen is. And there are a lot of times when we will have the kids will be struggling with something, and I won't necessarily tell them, hey, I want you to go talk to grandma.
Yeah.
But I'll say, hey, I'll go to her and I'll say, hey, I think they might be struggling with this. And then the next time they pop over, she'll kind of be like, hey, everything good? How's this? And then they might not talk to me, but then they're just like an open book with grandma. And as long as I know, she might, not run to me and tell me everything that they said, but say, we talked, and, I think that they've got a better handle on it. And I trust that. So sending them to people that you trust the advice that they're going to give them to do this is a big.
And I think you also need to remember that you have to be careful if so-and-so is only going to talk to somebody who's 15 years old. That's not okay.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of, clients who have an eating disorder, and they pinpoint somebody else with an eating disorder, and they want to come in and help that person, but they haven't fully finished, helping themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like you help them hand that back over to an adult. You can be the first person, but take that person and say, look, we got to talk to an adult. Because you cannot put that stress on somebody who's either already having an eating disorder or somebody who's 15. Like you can't, and that doesn't matter whether it's an eating disorder, an anxiety, dark thoughts. It doesn't matter what it is. You have to make sure that it's not a under 18-year-old that's holding the information on that. It's too much.
Well, this is great. I love it. Thank you so much. I think this is so important. Sometimes I try to keep things light and happy and funny, but sometimes the serious stuff has to get out there, because we have those real questions that we have. And I really thank you for bringing that to us. We'll go ahead and go to the next one, because I did have people that were asking about this too, and I'm excited. So how to balance your family's nutrition despite everyday life challenges.
Yeah, I think it goes back to one of the myths that I probably told you about that I forgot to talk about at the beginning. Yeah. So I think it's not really a myth. What a lot of people will come and say to me is like, you know what? I'm not a great cook. I'm not good at cooking. I'm not good at organizing my cooking. I'm not a chef like Jeanette. I'm not a chef. I'm not this. I'm not that. And often what I say, this is a bit of a myth, I guess. I can put it into a myth. I'll say to them, but you don't have to be. Okay? The most simple foods can come together with very little cooking, very little organizing, very little time, but just a little bit of thought in a bit what we talked about before. For me, it doesn't matter what you choose, but take a second and take a look at what I usually call a placemat, just a healthy placemat. Yeah. Think of what goes on a healthy placemat, and that will be your meal and your snack for the next, 3 hours. Okay. And we talked about it before. Look at it as a plate, half vegetables, a fist of some kind of whole grain, some kind of protein. Doesn't matter if it's beans, kidney beans, that there's chickpeas that just came out of the can. It doesn't matter. At some point, get that going with some kind of dairy or alternative and some kind of fruit. Sure, there's going to be fun snacks during the day too, but just take a quick look at that. And if you think about it, you can put something on the table when you have not a lot of money or not a lot of time or not a lot of cooking skills or not a lot of help, or, whatever's going on that day or that week in your life. If you think about it, you can put something that just fits the bill for that with not a lot. Okay. And I think that's where, and then you can build on it. Okay. So if all you can do this week is figure out how to find that balance, and it's with, eggs and cheese And, a chicken that was store-bought and you took pieces of it, it doesn't matter. Just get it looking a little bit more balanced. Get the, I call it sort of the bones of everything going, like get the schedule going a little bit, like Jessie said. I have some times, I'm putting it a little bit so that I can have some, I know when to focus on, this is breakfast time and this is lunch time and this is supper time. And you can just at least start putting together some kind of, not that we have to eat on schedule, but some kind of organization and schedule. And that will help you. Once you got that going, like the bones of it, if you want, then you can decide, instead of like a store-bought chicken, maybe I want to buy these chicken legs and actually put them in the oven tomorrow. Okay. So you can build on it. You don't have to just all of a sudden gourmet, look up a recipe and do nothing else in the house and in your life, then put a good meal on the table. Yeah. And I guess the other thing too is to get everybody involved. Okay. So we often see it as a burden, right? When you're told, okay, I got to do this, unless you got more time, you're seeing it a bit as a burden. Oh my God, like, what am I going to feed my family today? What am I going to take out of the freezer? What am I going to go buy? And somewhere along the way, the thing is that we put it all on one person. And the idea here is like, look, you're a family and everybody there is responsible, even if they're small, to do a little something to make it happen. Right? So the smallest person can go get the spoons and put the spoons on the table. Okay. And I know that sounds like, okay, that's more work than just doing it myself. But the same thing, somebody who's 10 years old can start to make the salad. What is it to put salad in a salad spinner? You started getting everybody involved. And at first it's more work than doing it yourself. We'll agree on that. But then they get skills, right? And they get thinking. And you're only, you think, some people will say to me, well, I don't want to burden my kids with like my chores and stuff. I'm like, they're not your chores. They're life skills. Mm-hmm. Unless you're doing these things regularly, it's going to be a chore when you grow up because you never learned how to do it. It's not like second nature to just take a pan and throw an egg in it. You don't even know how to do that. Right. So, and I think, I don't know if that's answering the question, but you take the simplest guide and you do one little thing at a time, and you start off by the big things like the scheduling down to just putting the things that are simple together. Mm-hmm. And if you want to get a little fancier, fine. And then get others involved once you've got some of that structure going. And that's very vague as an answer, but it's probably where to start, and then eventually you're starting to have people around you who will be part of putting a healthy, balanced meal together. And they will continue, if they're part of them, or they're your children, they will continue to do that as they grow up. Or as you are too busy to be in the kitchen when it's mealtime, they will do that. I mean, my kids now, they're 20 and 23. And I was working crazy today. I didn't stop. And I actually got a little bowl of strawberries land on my, and then yesterday while I was super busy, my son goes, Mom, did you have lunch yet? It was like 12:30, 1 o'clock. I'm like, soon, but I got to finish this email. It's an emergency. And all of a sudden eggs popped up with some toast. Like, it wasn't fancy. But like, we're like looking out for me the same way as I look out for them. So it's kind of nice.
We do breakfast for dinner sometimes just because it's quick, it's easy. Everybody can chip in. And like, anybody who knows me knows I love potatoes. But I hate washing them. I don't know why. It's weird. I hate washing them. So my daughters wash them so that then we make them. Yeah. And let's see. Oh yeah, Jeanette says I was just thinking about that. Jeanette's dropping.
I was thinking of you, Jeanette. Yeah.
Like, she's dropping knowledge on us in the comments too. So she says, not every day it has to be restaurant quality. And she said, I need to leave my cooking class links right here.
Yeah, right? I was thinking of you when I was saying that. No, and that's a really good point. And I think the idea here is to just start somewhere.
Yeah.
And not have those expectations. I had one young lady with a lot of binging. It just happens to be. Yeah. And It's funny because every time she was thinking of a meal, it always had to be sort of gourmet or really satisfying.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to eat something, it's just got to be satisfying, And it was her ideal of what was satisfying. And I thought, okay. And, what would happen is that sometimes, we talk about something and I'm saying, sometimes it's just a cheese sandwich on a nice bread that's still in the freezer. It's a nice cheese, ripe tomatoes, a handful of lettuce, a little bit of something to make it taste good. And it's like, it feels like gourmet, but it's so simple. And that's where sometimes you just have to, not put expectations that it's gourmet or that it's going to take a long time. We need to go with the flow. Some days are going to have to be quick. And I think you were saying something that I liked. It's sort of that idea of organizing or pre-prepping a little bit. So once you got that going, often if I know that I'm making a soup later, but I'm making something else now and I need an onion, I'm actually going to cut 3 onions.
Yeah.
And
I'll do that.
My kid's like, what are you doing there? Like, what do we need 3 onions for? You just need, and they're like, and I'm like, yeah, but at 1:00 this afternoon, as I'm cleaning my fridge out, my onions and everything that I wanted to be used for later, I just did it while this is dirty, the knife is dirty, the what do you call it? The cutting board is dirty. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do it all.
I do that with ground beef. I'll start my ground beef or my chicken for the week. Like if I know I'm going to have 2 or 3 meals with it in there, I'll cook it all at once, split it up, put it in a bag, use what I'm using tonight, and then have it already cooked in the bag, taking like another 10, 15 minutes off of my cooking for the next, meal.
Yeah.
So I have a pretty big question for you because, I don't know about you guys in Canada, but in the US, at least in Michigan, they re-released, and by they I mean Little Caesars, they re-released the Pretzel Pizza, which is my downfall. I can literally feel my heart slow down. I'm not even supposed to be eating like gluten and bread and all that stuff. I will feel my heart slowing down, and every time I hear it comes out, I'm like, we have to get one, and we end up getting like 2 or 3 of them. So should I feel bad for letting my family indulge in those things as long as it's like a treat and not an everyday thing? Is that would you say that's where the balance is?
That's a fun question. I tend to be, I want to figure out the best way to answer that. So what I see is that you've got your regular eating, which is your day in, day out. And then for sure, once in a while, things are going to be not, as per the guide, it's going to be a little bit off track, or it's going to be a day where, God knows when, but, when people are getting together for picnics again and doing that kind of stuff, it's a little bit either more quantity, different foods, more salty, more this, more that. And that to me, I don't even want to think about it as a treat. I want to say that it happens once in a while and not focus on it. And so in your case, what it sounds like is this is like some kind of fun food that you love.
Yeah.
And as long as it just falls here and there and it's not like every Friday or, how could I say, because I've been good, that kind of thing. You have to watch how you're getting to that. So I would say there's no problem with that,
Well,
it's not something that I would worry about. I think it's something that comes in once in a while. It's got its place. You don't necessarily have to make a big deal out of it. I think when one day the special is this and the next day it's something else, and when you stand back and look at the whole big picture, it lacks in variety, it lacks in nutrients. Then you start to think, okay, maybe I have to rethink what I'm doing because, the pizza is a once in a while, but so is the fried chicken once in a while, and the other one is once in a while, and then it all adds up, right? And I guess where I was saying about not just Friday night. So I know people, it's very interesting. I've learned over the years, lots of what people do is they eat kind of a bit restrictive all week long and then start Friday night right into Saturday. They just like eat whatever, like
their cheat day,
and they call it a cheat day. And for me, that's like, I have trouble with that. I have trouble with that.
Too, where like I I've always been one that says, eat the cookie. You want the cookie, eat the cookie. Because otherwise you're going to be sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 weeks later, because you told yourself you couldn't have the cookies, eating an entire box of cookies because you were restricting yourself for so long. So
I'm cautious with that idea that you treat yourself in a thing. So I'm more like, you know what? There's little things that are your thing.
Yeah.
And I kind of see it as a bit as there might be a fun snack during the day. Maybe for you it's a cookie, another person it's a little handful of something else, whatever it is, and maybe someday nothing comes up because it's just not even doesn't show up, nothing, no want and nothing there, no opportunity, and you don't even think about it. Versus when you absolutely have to have that cheat and it just goes crazy, it's also saying that what you're doing during the week is not normal because you have to go off the rails. Like, that shows you that if you can't maintain it long term, what you're doing, it's an extreme.
Yeah.
It's
and
not
there's healthy
middle.
alternatives to those treats, like frozen yogurts, like things like that, where you can put it in and feel like you're getting those treats, but it's still in line with your overall goal of just keeping like a healthy nutrition for your family. But I'm really glad to hear what you said about the pretzel pizza, only because that was literally dinner tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
But, oh my goodness. Well, I want to go and we'll go through and we'll do one of the myths that we didn't get to earlier, if that's okay. And then after that, we'll go, because I want to be mindful of your guys' time. Thank you to everybody who's shown up. If you are catching on the replay and you are still watching us, thank you so much for sticking with us too. Let's see. Let's go to, I'm going to go back to one and then we'll wrap it up if that's all right with you. We've got Jeanette had asked, what is the difference between label saying milk juice and label saying that it's a beverage? And I know you were kind of talking about that a little bit earlier, where some of those substitutes are beverages. So what's the difference between it saying actually milk and juice and versus it saying that it is a beverage?
Yeah. So usually when they use the word beverage, there's usually a law behind it. So for example, let's take a juice, for example. Pure juice versus a juice beverage. So juice beverage, I don't have the law in front of me, and it would be Canadian anyway, might be something where it has less than 20% of whatever it says it is. So a juice beverage or a beverage.
So like orange juice, it's actually 20%.
So I think, if I'm not mistaken, some cranberry, because, you put very little cranberry in that cranberry juice. It's sometimes not called cranberry juice, but cranberry beverage, because you start with something and then you make it into, but there isn't 20% of it in there and they can't call it a juice. So it's the same thing. If you've got, something that's mixed with something else and the percentage of content, I think I'll say 20%, but I don't know, that will categorize it. So that's a legal thing. They're not allowed, you're not allowed, if you put 3 drops of juice and all this other stuff, to call it a juice. That's the way they're doing it, is to protect the consumer. So that you're not being sort of, cheated out of what you think it is. Maybe the same thing when you're talking about a milk or a milk beverage, or usually what they'll call it is when you talk about a milk substitute, it's called a beverage. It's never, the word milk doesn't show up there usually. It's a beverage. And the reason it's a beverage is because you can't confuse it. It's like I said, again, many different things that come together that have maybe the look or the feel or something to do similar to what you know as milk, but it's not. Okay. So obviously milks, there's all kinds, right? You can have, goat's milk, you could have, but usually milk is reserved for something, I would say, like mammalian, It's usually not something that comes from a plant.
It came out of something that
exactly. So, in the other cases, it has nothing to do with whether it's nutritious or not. You could have a beverage that's very nutritious, but it would have to know what you're getting in it. So I think the idea behind labeling things, not as a milk or not as a juice, if it's not, is to avoid people thinking they're buying something that really it's not. Because there could be a little bit of marketing involved in how people like, you know, marketing has a lot to do with what we buy and our perception of things being healthy, right?
Yeah, that's actually that's actually my business is I help with marketing and social media and PR.
Yeah.
And so I definitely know that game. So being in that career too though, and also being a mom, and once I had a family, it was really important to me, like the authenticity of marketing and coming across, and like not just marketing to sell but marketing to help. So but that's a whole
point. Yeah, no, but I agree with that. And I mean, you look over the years, right? I mean, you're the marketing expert and I'm not. But you know, when people kind of, the pop, you know, the soda pop came out, it was a new thing and everybody drank it, and all of a sudden it was like, well, wait a minute, that's a sugary drink. Maybe we shouldn't be consuming it. The sales came down because now, you know, the novelty was replaced by some knowledge that maybe that wasn't the best thing. So what did these companies do? Look at who owns a lot of the juice companies. It's the same people. Because now by marketing something as 100% fruit juice, we could fool half the people into buying a sugary drink without them feeling like they're doing anything wrong. Same thing, right? You know, you kind of knew that these kinds of cookies were something to be eaten once in a while, but then you market granola bars and cereal bars and muffins. All of a sudden, you know, maybe the muffin is exactly the same thing as the cupcake over there.
Yeah.
Nobody, you know, and the cereal bar with the kind of jammy thing inside is the same thing as the cookie over there, shaped like a cookie. But now you've managed to get yourself back into a very well-meaning family who wants to make good choices for their family. And you put a bunch, I call it all a bunch of things in disguise, right?
Yeah.
And not all of them are equal. Yeah.
I used to, when my kids were little, I had them convinced, like my first two, I had them convinced that juice was pop, and that those little Quaker oatmeal bars, those were candy bars in my home. Those were candy bars. They didn't know what a real candy bar was. They had never had soda until they went to their aunt's house and they were introduced to Oreos, mini donuts, and soda. And I'm like, oh, you ruined it.
Yeah, but you know what? You were saying the right thing, because there's no difference between pop and juice, and there's no difference between candy bars and those other things. They're just in disguise. So they are the same. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. You have like filled us with so much amazing knowledge, the education, the tips, and just the real ways to apply them is awesome. And it's refreshing, especially because, like I said, there's so many parents out there that just don't know how to ask or are confused about it. So
it's easy to get confused.
It is. So some of those myths to be busted is really awesome. So thank you so much for that. I want to let everybody know, if you are a mom on a mission, or you know a mom on a mission like Lisa, and you want to either nominate a mom, or you would like to go live and talk with me and share your knowledge with other people on one of my lives with me, I put a link inside of the comments here, and you can just click on that, and there's like a whole little thing that you can fill out, and I would love to have you go live with me. I have been so lucky to meet some really amazing moms. Lisa, we connected right away, and I absolutely
love it. That's for sure.
And then
I love your energy.
Oh, thank you. And then, I mean, and it's just great. It's just like been attracting those types of people. So if you're one of those people, or you know one of those types of people, please fill that out, because I would love to share your knowledge with everybody else here. I want to also let people know, Lisa, I don't know, I will have to get your information if they want to ask you any questions, or if you have questions and you're on the replay, please put them in. And then if there's anything that I can't answer, I'll kick it over to Lisa and ask her for her expertise.
Yeah, and I saw some go by. I know Jeanette had another question there, and I mean, I think what's nice is you're such an energetic group. I can see by the questions and the, everything, that we could just keep on going, I mean, it'd be so easy to just keep on going. But let me know if anything comes up. It'll be a pleasure to answer some of those.
Yes. And then I want to make sure that you guys know too, I mean, with everything that we were talking about, whether it's nutrition, especially with like the eating disorders, or if you're concerned about anything, we touched on anxiety and different things like that too. I want to make sure that you know that if you need help, then please reach out. Okay. That's on the underline of any of these lives, almost anything that we talk about here. Make sure that you are reaching out. Me specifically, I have a group for working moms and moms building businesses, and just kind of the daily struggle that sometimes they have. If you are a stay-at-home mom, or if you're a parent, or just somebody looking for help, if I'm not your resource, I will find it for you. I know amazing women like Lisa that are creating just support systems for people that are struggling. So please, please, please reach out. Okay. I know it's so much easier when you have support and empowerment from other people, and that is, and I will say that time and time again until I'm blue in the face.
You're still pink. You're still pink. You can keep saying it.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today. I have Angie with me next week from Rising Wellness, and she's going to be talking about basically turning the page around and seeing things in a more positive light, and how that can really change your perspective. And we're not talking toxic positivity here. We're talking about like actually looking at things and applying things to your life to make it more positive. So if you are looking into that, please check out next week's event. I'll put that information below as well. And as always, you guys, if you are trying to do it all, you do not have to do it all alone, okay? Find me, find someone, find a friend, find a grandma, and reach out, okay? We are always here for you. And like I said, if it's not me, I will find somebody to help you out. As always, I am a mom on a mission. It has been a mother of a mission. And I thank you so much for joining me, you guys. I will see you on Sunday for updates. Bye.
Sounds great. This was fun. Bye, everyone.